Is refinancing your student loans a good deal? And where do you even start? 45 million people in the US have student loan debt, totaling to a whopping $1.6 trillion in total student loan debt. It's safe to say student loans are a hot topic, and consequently, refinancing options are too for your student loan debt. That's what our show's about today. So if you have questions on why, how, and when to refinance your student loans, stay with me for the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to our live Facebook show, Ask Abby. My name is Abby, and we are here at Credit and Debt and are dedicated to answering all of your questions about your finances. We're kicking off our first full week of our student loan series with the very pressing question, how do student loan refis work? When is the right time, and how do you even go about starting that process? I've had many people approach me with that question, so I did the research for you and I have some answers. We're going to talk through all of that, so please go ahead while we get started. Please share this video, like it so that all of those 45 million people with student loan debt can get some help, and punch that like button so that all of your friends with student loans, I know you have friends with student loans, and I know you want to help them so we can answer their questions as well. So first things first, we have to understand what student loan debt is before we just dive into the refi aspect. So most of you probably already know, but if you don't, or you'd like a refresher on how student loans are broken down, I have a quick 1-minute video that I will pull up for you and put it in the comment bar, and then that way you have that. Give me just 1 second and I will get that pulled up for you. Alrighty, that link is in the comment bar for you, so go ahead. That is the intro to student loans, and now if you've come back and if you go watch that, come back and we'll get you caught up to understand student loan refinancing. If you're just joining us, today's topic is on how do student loan refis work, and if you have questions along the way, throw them in the comment bar and I will get those answered for you. Let me just pull that up so I make sure I see those questions when they come up. All right, so first off, we're going to talk about the why aspect. Why should you refinance your student loans? It's a good question, and it's usually, student loan refis are usually good for a set of reasons. For example, if you'd like to consolidate your loans so that you only have one monthly payment, if you would like to lower your interest rate so that you pay less over time, or if you'd like to lower your monthly payment so you pay less each month. And then lastly, if you'd like to pay off your student loans faster, these are all great reasons to refinance your student loans. So refinancing might be a good option for you, but there are a number of things you should consider before you start just filling out applications, right? So once you get past those goals and you figure out what you're trying to do, it's time to consider all of those aspects. First off, you should take a good hard look at your credit score. So we're going to get into the when of this question. When should you refinance your student loans? So after you figure out why you're refinancing your student loans, let's talk about when. First off, you need to look at your credit score. To make a refi worth it, your credit score has to be looking pretty decent. And why? Because you're basically trying to convince a lender that you're financially responsible, and your credit score is a good indicator of whether or not you're financially responsible. So if you're wondering, well, I have tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt, my credit score can't be great, right? So how do these student loans affect your credit score? These are great questions, and we did a show for that actually to kick off this series last week, and I will put that link in the comment bar. So go ahead, watch that. We answer exactly how your student loans affect your credit score, and it might not be what you think. You might think having tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt might affect your score one way or another, but you might be wrong. So check that video out. But when it comes to refinancing, the better your score, the better your interest rate in general, right? Forbes says that student loan lenders expect you to have a credit score somewhere in the mid to high 600s. There are some lenders out there who don't have a minimum credit score. So just proceed with caution. Either way, it never hurts to have a better credit score, right? So if you're looking for ways to improve your credit score, you know that your credit score could use some help. I, believe it or not, have a show for you. We really are working to get you guys answers on all these questions that might come up. So here's a show I did. Oops, I copied the same link in there for you. One sec. Let me get that fixed. So 5 easy ways to improve your credit score. So if you're looking at your score, you're not in that mid to high 600 range, and you're wondering, how can I improve my credit score? These are 5 easy ways to do it, and they're not extravagant. It's not telling you, pay off all your debt. Obviously, that would be a good way to improve your credit score, but it's not always plausible. So these are easy ways to improve your credit score. So check out that link. A few other considerations aside from credit score when you're thinking about when to refinance your student loans. You should think about things like, do you have an income and a job, and is your income enough? Lenders don't necessarily care about how much you make from a number perspective, but what they care about is how much you make enough to take care of all of your bills, including this new one you will be looking to pay with that new lender when you go to refinance, right? So if you're unemployed or furloughed, now is probably not the best time to refinance your student loans. Another thing to think about is your debt to income ratio. So if you have a significant amount of debt outside of your student loans, lenders might not approve your application or want to lend you a new loan. So that's something to look out for. Another thing is when you're thinking about refinancing your student loans, the main goal, right, one of them that we talked about earlier of those goals is to find a better interest rate. And if you can't get a better interest rate than the one you already have, then now is not the time to refinance your loans. Another question is, do you have any other major credit purchases coming up? Why? Because your student loan application will drop your credit score. It might only be 5 to 10 points, but that could be significant. If it drops you a full ranking, maybe you go from, good to fair, that could be significant when you're going to refinance your house or purchase a house. If you're going to purchase a house, purchase a car, even get a cell phone. These are all things that you need credit for. So if you're thinking about making any big changes like that, now's not a good time to refinance your loan. So if you're wondering, okay, well, I was thinking about doing some of this stuff, how do those things affect my credit score? I have a video for that. Surprise, surprise. Here it is in the comment bar. How do certain actions affect your credit score? We talk about things like, if you miss a mortgage payment, what happens? If you make your mortgage payment, what happens? I had a question, somebody asked the question of, if you pay your payment on time, do you get 5 points for that? How exactly does that work? So we broke that down for you in that video. So those are all the whens. And so let's talk about, if you've considered those things and your credit score is at least in the mid to high 600s, you have a steady income, you don't have burdening debt, and you don't have another major purchase lined up, you're probably in a pretty good place to refinance your student loans. So let's talk about a few circumstances, aside from those we discussed above, why you might not want to refinance. The first that we're going to talk about is if you only have federal student loans. Well, why? Because there there is one one reason is that the federal government doesn't offer refinancing options. It doesn't mean you can't refinance your federal student loans. You can, just not through the federal government. You'd have to move those to a private lender. Obviously, there are some upsides to moving to a private lender. Things like, well, I could save on my interest rate and save over time. That's huge. But that said, the federal government has some extra programs and benefits that private lenders just can't offer. So if you have only federal student loans, then that's something huge to consider. For example, student loan forbearance and deferment are often options with federal student loans through the federal government that you can't get without a fee through a private lender. That's not always true. Sometimes you can, but it's very, very structured with the federal government. And under certain circumstances, like this pandemic that cripples the economy, everyone who has everyone who has federal student loans under the CARES Act didn't have to pay them until September 30th, 2020. So they were completely deferred, those payments, until September. You didn't have to do anything. You don't have to worry about it. And in fact, now they're not even accruing interest. So that's huge. Private student loans, on the other hand, did not have to follow that regulation. They could do their own thing. It doesn't mean that you couldn't ask for forbearance or for deferment, but it wasn't automatic and simple like it was written out in the CARES Act, and it was just simple like that. So that's something to think about. If you only have federal student loans, you might want to reconsider refinancing. Another reason you might not be in a good position to refinance is that you're already behind on your payments, right? So you've already missed a payment or two and you're already kind of behind. So student loans are usually with you for the long term. We talked about last week that on average it takes 20 years to pay these bad boys off. So if you are in trouble with your job and your income is, somewhere along the way in those 20 years, you might face issues like that where you get laid off or furloughed or your income's reduced. And in a time like this, that's not unusual. So that means you might have to miss a payment. And if that's the case, you might not be in a good spot to refi because your credit could take a hit from those payments and lenders will be hesitant to give you a new loan to replace the loan that you're already behind on. So at this point, we're all caught up with the why and the when for refinancing your student loans. There's a few good reasons. We talked about why you should refinance, getting a lower interest rate, paying off your loans faster, reducing your student loan amount over time, and lowering that monthly payment if that's something you need to do. And then the when, we talked about an abundance of things for when you should refinance. So if you have any other questions that I didn't answer in that why or when, or if you're just tuning in and you'd like me to refresh you on something, feel free to throw those in the comment bar and I'll answer those, because now we're going to talk about how. How do you refinance? You've decided it's a good deal. How do you go about it? Like I mentioned a bit earlier, the first thing you need to do when you're thinking about refinancing is check your credit score. That will help you understand the ballpark of where you are for interest from an interest rate perspective prior to filling out any applications. So there's a few ways, really cool things. Well, of course, you probably know Credit Karma, Mint, Credit.com, your bank, they all probably offer you free ways to check your credit score. And checking your credit score on those sites won't hurt your credit. That said, it's a hard pull, like the ones the lenders are going to do when you finally fill out the application to refinance your student loans, that will hurt your credit. So checking beforehand allows you to ensure you're in the ballpark before filling out any applications. So now you've checked your credit score. The next step is to look at your current loan standing. It's just a good idea to know where you're at to make sure that when you go to fill out applications, you'll be getting a better deal if you refinance. So go check out your student loans. There are a few ways. If you don't know where to check your student loan, balance and interest rate, go to your servicer's website with and then write them all down. You can also go to studentaid.gov. I will put that in the link. So that will show you your interest rate and balance for your federal student loans. And you just get your login there and log in that way. And that will pull up a recent history for all of your federal loans, along with some other really cool resources. So keep in mind that right now your interest rate will show 0 on that website, but that's only till the end of September. So something to keep in mind. If you have private student loans and you're not sure who your servicer or lender is, you can find that by you can find out at least who your servicer is by going to annualcreditreport.com. I mention that website all the time, but by checking your credit report, you'll see what loans you have on there. From there, you can figure out who services those loans, register on their website if you haven't already, and then just check out your interest rate and balances. So after you check your credit score and find out your interest rate and balance on your student loans, you can start to do some interest rate comparisons, your actual deals you can get. With sites, there's some cool sites out there. Credible and NerdWallet allow you to see your interest rate for free online without hurting your score. So you can actually plug in your personal information on the data we just collected, your estimated credit score, and your student loan information on those websites, and they'll compare about 10 lenders for you based on that information. And then some of the most common lenders you'll probably see get pulled up are like SoFi, Earnest, Laurel Road, and they'll often tell you right there if there's a minimum credit score, and they'll give you a ballpark range of where your interest rate might be in your situation. So check those out. Once you figure out, I'm going to apply to this lender, this lender, this lender. You pick a few, and then once you decide which of those you're going to submit applications to, it's important to be strategic because you want to minimize the negative effects that a hard pull has on your credit score. So first off, ask if there's a pre-qualification option. A lot of lenders will allow you to submit a pre-qualification application prior to their hard credit pull, and then that will give you a decent idea of where you'll stand based on your previous loan, and then it'll give you an estimate of where you're actually going to be monthly payment, interest rate, overall paid amount paid over time with that specific lender. So if they have a pre-qualification application, see if you can do that. Fill that out first. Say that 20 times fast. Pre-qualification application. So once you start filling out the real deal applications, make sure all the hard inquiries that you have, so fill out all your applications on the same day, because hard pulls on your credit usually just count as one when you're doing this shopping around for 14 days. So you want all those hard pulls on your credit to happen in the 14-day range. And your credit score will probably only drop 5 to 10 points, but if you're curious exactly how that's going to happen, check out that How Do Certain Actions Affect Your Credit Score show that I did last week or the week before. If you wait too long, of course, if those hard inquiries get spread out 14, 30 days, sometimes like over 30 days, there's a good chance you're going to have 2 dings on your credit score, which is the last thing you want when you're trying to put yourself in a better financial situation, right? So the last thing we're going to go through in this whole student loan process is that you still need to pay your current loan. So if you have due dates coming up, if you have federal student loans, those have been deferred till September. But if you have private student loans and you have payments coming up, you still need to hi Jerry, if you have federal student loans, or private student loans, you still need to make that payment. That's important because if you don't make a payment and you're reported delinquent to the credit bureaus, your lender, your prospective lender, could pull your application and say you're no longer qualified for this, you had a late payment. So that's huge. And in this process, the refi process can take a while, right? So it can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2-3 months. So you want to make sure that if you're doing this, you know exactly when your next payments are, to make sure that your soon to be old lender doesn't report you as late to the credit bureaus until you get confirmation from your new lender that the process is complete and you receive instructions on how to make your new payments. So, what other questions do you have about student loans? Do you have any stories that would be helpful in the process? Would you be willing to share those with me? If you do, please feel free to reach out to me by either sending a message, commenting on this post, or you can email me directly at askabby@creditanddebt.org. And if you have questions you'd like to know about through this student loan series, feel free to reach out. And if you have any stories, I would love to hear them. That's our show today, you guys, and what a great way to kick off the student loan series for you. We have 2 full weeks of student loan topics to cover. So like I said, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And if you're facing problems or issues or struggles with your finances right now, please remember that you can call our coaches for free for financial advice, no strings attached, right? So we can help you create a budget and even find a way out of debt if you're facing any sort of debt right now. So we've helped so many people along the way, and that's my mission, is to help you. That's our mission here at Credit and Debt. So like I said before, don't forget to share and like this video so that more people with these student loan questions can get some help understanding the refi options. There are 45 million people out there that this topic is relevant to, so please help us get it to them. And then you'll benefit too, because if you like and share our stuff, you'll see more of it. And we will definitely have lots of more great topics out there relevant to your finances. Thank you again for watching, everyone, and we will see you next week on Ask Abby.